Big, ridiculous question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
I think that, there are probably a couple of different ways that I would go at this. But I think it gets back to this last question that we talked about the duality between you have the people around you who you care the most about, and then there's like this bigger thing that maybe you're building. And I think that in my own life, I sort of think about this tension, but when it's, I started this whole company and my life's work is around human connection. So I think it's intellectually probably the thing that I go to first is just that human connection is the meaning. And I think that it's a thing that our society probably systematically undervalues. I just remember, when I was growing up and in school, it's like, do your homework and then go play with your friends after. And it's like, no, well, what if playing with your friends is the point?
It sounds like an argument your daughters would make.
Well, I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
Homework doesn't even matter, man.
well, I think it's interesting because it's, people tend to think about that stuff as wasting time, or that's like what you do in the free time that you have. But what if that's actually the point?
Yeah.
So that's one. But here's maybe a different way of coming at this, which is maybe a more religious in nature. I always there's a rabbi who I've studied with who kind of gave me this. We were talking through Genesis and the Bible and the Torah, and they're basically walking through. It's like, okay, you go through the 7 days of creation, and it's like, why does the Bible start there? Right? It's like it could have started anywhere, right? In terms of how to live. But basically it starts with talking about how God created people in her image. But the Bible starts by talking about how God created everything. So I actually think that there's a compelling argument that I think I've always just found meaningful and inspiring, that a lot of the point of what sort of religion has been telling us that we should do is to create and build things.
What's your mission in life? Why you do whatever you do?
In terms of the motivations, I guess the sort of kind of a long version of the explanation, but essentially, when I was a kid, I was wondering kind of what's the meaning of life, why are we here, what's it all about, and I came to the conclusion that what really matters is trying to understand the right questions to ask. And the more that we can increase the scope and scale of human consciousness, the better we are able to ask these questions. And so I think that there's certain things that are necessary to ensure that the future is good. And some of those things are, in the long term, having long-term sustainable transport and sustainable energy generation, and to be a spacefaring civilization, and for humanity to be out there among the stars and be a multi-planetary species. I think being a multi-planet species and being out there among the stars is important for the long-term survival of humanity, and that's one reason, kind of like life insurance for life collectively, life as we know it. But then the part that I find personally most motivating is that it creates a sense of adventure, and it makes people excited about the future. If you consider two futures, one where we are forever confined to Earth until eventually something terrible happens, or another future where we are out there on many planets, maybe even going beyond the solar system, I think that second version is incredibly exciting and inspiring, And there need to be reasons to get up in the morning. Life can't just be about solving problems. Otherwise, what's the point? There's got to be things that people find inspiring and make life worth living.
People ask themselves all the time, what's the purpose of life? And there's a variety of answers to that. There's no purpose. We're just atoms on a dust mote at the edge of a rather reprehensible corner of the cosmos, and we exist for a moment and we're out, and that's that. Or we're so lost in a plethora of subordinate meanings that we're confused and aimless. Or we want to be hedonistically happy, and I would say that's really the offer that's on the table in our culture most of the time. It's like, well, I just want to be happy. And people will say that to you. It's a slogan. It's the most common slogan of our time, I would say. And it's such a preposterous slogan. It's like, what do you mean just? You just want to be happy. That's all. That's all you want. That absolute impossibility. You want bliss, unending, no matter what you do. And that's all you want. It's not exactly a small ask, let's say. Because it's the same thing as asking to dwell permanently in paradise. It's something like that. So, it's not that likely. And then, it also isn't true. That isn't what you want. If you do careful analysis of what people mean when they say they just want to be happy, what they mean is they don't want to suffer stupidly. We're much more concerned with not experiencing an excess of negative emotion. It's like it isn't obvious at all that we want happiness. It isn't even obvious that we want absence of misery. What's really obvious is that we want an adventure.
What is the meaning of life according to Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Okay, so people want to know the meaning of life and their significance of their life in this world.
Yeah.
And some of them come from religious angles, some are secular, but everybody's got this burning issue.
Yes.
So here's how I have dealt with it. Others will do it other ways.
Okay.
But here's how I deal with it.
I'm interested now.
Many people are in search of the meaning of life as though it's behind a tree.
Right.
Under a rock. If you are looking for meaning, you may never find it.
Ooh.
So instead, recognize that you have the power to manufacture meaning. Create it within yourself. And that's what I do. My meaning for life is derived by several simple principles. Have I lessened the sufferings of others today?
Mm-hmm.
That brings meaning to me, because that means the world is a little better off because I was in it today.
Okay.
If after your day is over, the world is worse off, you have subtracted meaning. So lessen the suffering of others in some way.
Right.
Doesn't mean redirect your whole life, mind, body, and soul, but if you can help someone across the street, help an aging person, make a child laugh, just put a little bit of joy in the world to lessen the suffering. I also try to learn something every day.
All right.
Now, I like being a perpetual student. I want to lessen the sufferings of others and make sure I learn something more about the world today than I did yesterday.
Nice.
And who's to say whether that extra increment of learning can help me be better at lessening the sufferings of others.
Ooh.
So that is how I make meaning in life.